The sun cast long shadows across the compound as Tunde sat under the mango tree, staring at the yellowing walls of the house he had grown up in. His phone buzzed, but he ignored it, lost in thought. Something wasn't right. Days before, his father's voice had broken over the phone. "I'm expecting you to sort the land issue when you come back. Your uncles are not happy." Tunde knew what that meant. His inheritance was in danger. Later, in the crowded sitting room, the air was thick with tension as family members gathered. Tunde's father, Baba Tunde, cleared his throat. "We need to settle the land dispute," he began. "You know your uncle Femi feels you were given more than your share." Tunde's cousin, Bola, shot him a look of pity mixed with something else, satisfaction. Tunde felt a chill. The whispers in the village about Bola had grown louder. Could he really be plotting against his own family? Tunde's eyes darted to his mother, Mama Tunde, who sat quietly in the corner, hands clasped. She caught his gaze and shook her head subtly. The rest of the family continued to argue about deeds and boundaries, but Tunde sensed an undercurrent. As the meeting dragged on, the sensation of betrayal settled in like an unwanted guest. After the meeting, Bola approached Tunde outside. "Ah, brother," he said, feigning nonchalance. "You know how these things are, families and their drama. Don't take it too seriously." Tunde forced a smile, his mind racing. Bola's words were too smooth, too rehearsed. As Bola walked away, Tunde felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Something was indeed off. That night, Tunde sat at the edge of his bed, unable to sleep. His mother's words echoed in his mind, "Be careful who you trust, Tunde." He knew that her advice was more than just caution. But what he couldn't shake off was the feeling that while everyone was concerned about the land, Bola was interested in something more personal, perhaps taking everything. Over the next few days, Tunde began to notice the small, telling signs. Conversations would hush as he entered the room. His brothers avoided eye contact. In the market, he overheard whispers, "Bola is the rightful head of the family now." Each word cut deeply. Home, a place that once felt safe, now felt foreign and unwelcoming. Mima Tunde visited him one evening as he sat dismantling old family photographs, any distraction from the turmoil inside. "These things divide families," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Tunde clenched his jaw. Why didn't she speak up when it mattered? The betrayal he felt was not just from his cousin, but from the silence of those he loved. As the days passed, the isolation grew. Tunde became the topic of heated discussions and pointed fingers, as though he were responsible for the tension within the family. The once vibrant compound, filled with laughter and life, seemed to close in on him. His family's lack of support burned deeper than any feud over land could. Desperation clawed at him as the final meeting approached. Tunde knew he needed a plan, something that would reveal the truth and reclaim his rightful place. He began to gather information, documents, anything that could serve as evidence. It was time to confront the lies and manipulations. He lay awake most nights, piecing together every clue, every conversation. The thought of challenging his cousin, a person everyone seemed to believe, made his heart race. But the idea of losing everything to deceit was unbearable. Revenge was no longer a choice, it was a necessity. The day of the meeting arrived, and Tunde walked into the room with calm defiance. Bola sat confidently at the head of the table. Tunde held a folder close, containing all he had gathered. Tension crackled like a live wire as everyone stared, waiting for the fireworks to begin. Clearing his throat, Tunde began. "Family," he started, voice clear and steady. "We talk of land and legacy. But there seems to be more smoke than fire here. Let's discuss real facts." He placed the folder on the table. His uncles exchanged hesitant glances. Bola shifted uncomfortably. With deliberate movements, Tunde opened the folder and pulled out documents that detailed how his cousin had manipulated records, shifting boundaries on paper and lining up allies. "This," he said, pointing, "is not just about land. It's about deceit. This is not who we are." Betrayal of family. Faces around the table turned pale, emotions swirling in confusion and anger. Bola stammered, "These are lies." Tunde stood firm. "Enough with lies. I have evidence." Everything here links back to you, Bola. A wave of murmurs swept through the room. And then it happened, a door swung open, and in walked Alhaji Karim, a respected elder known for settling disputes. I heard there's a matter that needs truth, he announced. Silence settled like dust. Tunde felt a flicker of hope coupled with dread. Alhaji's presence was either a chance for vindication or further entrapment. His next words would change everything. Alhaji Karim stepped into the room, his presence calming the turmoil if only for a brief moment. His eye fell on the folder Tunde had presented, taking in the nervousness etched on Bola's face. "Ayan, what is this noise about, Tunde?" Alhaji asked, commanding the attention of everyone with a voice like a drumbeat. Tunde took a deep breath. "It's about integrity, Alhaji. My cousin Bola has been shifting boundaries, altering records to claim what is not his." Alhaji nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of Tunde's words. The atmosphere thickened as uncles exchanged glances, whispers snaking through the room. Bola, visibly shaken, stood with a false bravado. "This is nonsense, Alhaji. Lies meant to tarnish my name." The room erupted as everyone began speaking at once. Voices raised, drowning out reason. Bola's allies defended him, while others, swayed by evidence, looked at him with new suspicion. It was a storm of words, and Tunde stood at the eye, holding on to his resolve. Mama Tunde, standing quietly at the back, caught her son's eye and nodded, a silent encouragement. "Silence," Alhaji said, raising his hand. "We cannot resolve this with shouting. Bola, do you deny these claims with proof of your own?" Bola hesitated, a crack appearing in his arrogance. His eyes darted around, seeking an escape. "I have witnesses," he stammered. But as his gaze met each of their faces, he saw doubt. Baba Tunde, voice thick with emotion, spoke up. "We must honor the truth, no matter how painful." Bola, like a cornered animal, lashed out. "Tunde, you think you're innocent. Haven't you profited enough?" His words dripped with venom, an attempt to turn the tables. But Tunde, heart-pounding, stood firm. "This is not about profit, Bola. It's about family. About the legacy of our fathers. We cannot build on lies." Bola's face twisted in rage, and for a heartbeat, it seemed like the room might implode. But before either side could escalate, Mama Tunde's voice floated through the tension. "Tunde, come." Tunde hesitated but followed her outside, his mind a turmoil of conflicting emotions. In the quiet of the courtyard, his mother turned to him with eyes old as the world. "I have seen families torn to pieces by such hatred," she began, her voice soft yet unyielding. "But, Mama, I cannot let this slide." "Bola's betrayal, Tunde," she interrupted gently. "Do you remember what the good book says? He who digs a pit will fall into it. Whatever Bola has done, vengeance has its own cost." Tunde averted his eyes. "And I am supposed to just forgive and forget." Mema Tunde placed a worn hand on his shoulder, the warmth cutting through his defenses. "Forgiveness isn't easy, my son. But it releases your heart from the chains of another's sin." Her words spiraled in his mind, clashing with his seething anger and hurt pride. The reality of their situation weighed heavily on him, threatening to suffocate any rational thought. "But how, Mama? Bola will only continue his deceit," he said, his voice cracking. "The heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps," she replied. "Pray, Tunde. Seek wisdom, not revenge." As night descended, Tunde wrestled with his mother's words, the weight of them pressing upon his conscience. He had assumed that exposing Bola would be enough to bring justice, yet here he was, doubt gnawing at him. In the silence, he whispered a prayer, unsure of what he was searching for but yearning for peace within the storm. The next morning, with a clarity that surprised him, Tunde approached Bola. The family needed to witness this. Bola sneered, expecting another verbal skirmish. But instead, Tunde extended a hand. "Let this end here, Bola. For the sake of our father's legacy, I forgive you. But understand, I too will guard what is mine." Bola hesitated, disbelief etched on his face. The room was hushed, anticipation heavy. From the corner, Baba Tunde rose slowly, steadying himself with the cane, his eyes moist with unshed tears. "That takes courage, my son," he said, his voice wavering with pride and relief. Al-Haji Karim nodded approvingly, his eyes softening. "There's wisdom in what you've done, Tunde. But this matter is not concluded with words alone. Accountability must follow." Family members murmured in agreement, a cautious understanding unfolding. Bola's posture softened, eyes fallen to the ground, pride swallowed, a twitch of remorse flickering there. Perhaps this confrontation had woken something in him, a realization of the damage he had wrought. Mama Tunde, standing silently beside Tunde, whispered a heartfelt Oluwa Awa Pelu, "My son. God is with you." And so, with the guidance of Al-Haji, a fair agreement was crafted. Bola would amend his ways, boundaries restored with transparency. Tunde understood now, peace was never found through vengeance, it bloomed from reconciliation and the courage to forgive. The atmosphere in the room was different now, fragile, yet relieved. Hurt lingered in the edges, but there was potential for healing. They were not who they'd been yesterday, and Tunde realized, as he looked around the room, that this was the beginning of a new chapter, not the end of one.
Thank you so much for listening to this intriguing story. I hope it touched you or taught you something. For more stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. And guys, if you'd like to see a part 2, or you have thoughts on what happened, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.